So hey everybody, I'm Chris. Yeah, I'm going to talk to you about some list formatting stuff today. Very exciting. So let's head on over to our classic Warrior Horses site that we all have, of course. Good. So we're on our Warrior Horses site, and the Warrior Horses have put together a very short list of elite warriors. Right. So we have this elite warriors list. What they're actually doing with the list, not that important, right? But the idea is they're just tracking some things here, and what they've run into is they've got a manager that's decided they don't like how this looks. They're like, oh, there's the weird gray. We use brown everywhere else, and there's a weird gray. I don't like that. I want it to be all these other colors, right? So now we can do some things like that. And we've seen this before. We go into Format Our Current View, and if we go to Advanced Mode, we can do what's called an additional row class. And what I want to show you with that, well, first off, we don't want an object. We want a expression here. All right, so we could easily say, you know, ms-bgColor, and we could say red. Just because we're like, here, you like pretty? There's pretty. All right, there's the prettiest thing possible, right? And that's not so pretty, right? We want to do this a little more carefully. Now we could add expressions here, right? So we could add an expression to determine, you know, what those should be and so on. But I want to look at a fairly new placeholder that can help us with this, right? So in this case, we want to say, you know, the background color is going to be, I don't know, let's pick one out. We'll say theme lighter. So ms-bgColor, we'll just go neutral lighter. That sounds good. All right, so instead of that white background, we wanted this slight gray background, and that's okay. Right, but now we've matched our hover color. Like, dang it. Right, now we don't have the hover, and that's kind of annoying. So now we could add our own color right here for that. We can say ms-bgColor, you know, we'll say theme lighter -- hover. Right, and we do something like that. Now we've got our own custom hover color, and got our own custom background color, and that's nice, right? And then we run into this. You know, I select an item, and well, now we don't run into an issue. It was supposed to be the wrong color. Oh, there it is. Okay, so now we get the wrong color, right? So now we get this weird gray, and we're like, well, how do we set that, right? Because that's unique based on when it's selected or not. And that's what we're going to talk about. And that is our new placeholder token called isSelected. So if I were to take this same kind of thing here, I'm just going to cut that, so I'm going to type it again, and I could say equals, I'm going to write an expression, and say if, and I can look at isSelected. Keep in mind the is all lowercase and selected as capital S, but this is going to return a true or false value based on whether it's selected or not. And so now I can, you know, type in some things here. So if it's selected, I'm going to do something, but if it's not, we'll keep what I had before, right? So now, when it's selected, we're not doing that, but let's add some other things here. So now I'm going to say ms-bgColor, we'll go theme light, right, because it's selected. These are case sensitive. All right, theme light. And we'll just see what that looks like for a second, right? So now we can see, now we're setting a selected color. Right? If we want to override so it doesn't hover anymore because it's not selected, you know, we could come in here and we could say ms-bgColor theme light -- hover. All right, and then when we do that, now we shouldn't get that anymore. So that's kind of cool. So now we're controlling a little more of the experience. All right, if we wanted to go a little further, we could. Where am I getting these classes from? So if you head over to our list formatting repo and you click on this link over to the right, we've got this site with some documentation, some other groupings and things. And the way I use this all the time is I use the groupings and I go down by class. And I literally use this to find out what can I set. Oh, I want to find out backgrounds. Well, here's some ms-bg colors like we just looked at. I can see there's a bunch of named colors. There's also theme colors. Right, there's the neutral colors. All of these are in here, and I can use these to help me determine what's available. Right, you can see I've got other things like what if I wanted to slap a border on there, right? So we come down here and we got these like SP field border, right? So let's take one of those. So SP field border all dotted. Sounds exciting. All right, so maybe we added when you're selected. We also want to say ms was it field border? I don't remember. Actually, let's try a different one. Let's try, there's a couple of these. So SP field border all dotted. And that one was on here. It's just in the SP field border. Yeah, that's what it is. All dotted. We got that. Let's try it. So preview that. So now you notice there's some weird things where they're actually doing a thing where they're actually, they didn't quite do the border sizing right. But, you know, the idea here is we can start applying classes. We can do so based on selection or not. And that's pretty cool. Right. So we'll save that. And we can do the same thing in our column format. So if we come over here, I've got a column format here on the horse, right? We go to column settings. We're going to format this column. Come over here. And all we're really doing is we're pulling a picture out of the document library and we're displaying it based on the value here. You know, we could have used an image column, we could use even a picture column, but we wanted to do something a little more elaborate here in this case. And now we've got that, but we could come in here and we could even use the same kind of pattern. So if isSelected, right? And then we could say add to the URL sitting, right? Otherwise, just leave it alone. All right, and if we preview that, and we'll save it. Oh, well, we have to put a plus symbol here. Broke our formula. Let's preview that. Save it. See if that's right. I'm going to refresh. I've had a couple of issues today with my stuff. There we go. Perfect. So now we can see that now the horses will sit down whenever we selected them because they're ready to be doing something with them, and that's very exciting. But the idea here is, you know, is that particularly practical right now? No, but you could find probably lots of use cases where this would be very, very practical. Right? The idea of being able to indicate when something is selected, whether it's in your view format and so on. A couple things to note with this is this only works if selection is enabled. So if you hide that selection, you have no way to select. And there's nothing to be selected. I've also seen some weird stuff like you'll see here. Like you see this where if I'm not selecting the select button, I don't get my same quite the styles. The columns all get it. It's that additional row class that doesn't seem to be evaluated quite right. But if I hit edit, it does get reevaluated. So there's a couple of weird things with the additional row class and the isSelected and how that's being evaluated. But otherwise, isSelected, you know, evaluates immediately. And the idea here is you could use this to indicate when you're customizing, say, the ribbon up here. Oh, not ribbon, sorry. Oops. Command bar. When you're customizing the command bar, right? You're doing certain things with selection. You may want to indicate, you know, various things that could happen here to say like, oh, this one is going to, if you hit delete on this one, right, it's going to be doing something here. You could even change the button text based on what has been selected and so on. So you can see that now we've got an extra tool in our tool belt. All right. So that's for isSelected. So that's really exciting. Okay. Now let me make sure that that went very, very fast. So good news is I've got something else we'll show you too, just for funsies here. All right. So that was the primary demo, but let's look at one that is we're going to do on the fly, just for fun here. Okay. So what we're going to do on the fly here is there's a new custom action here, and we're going to take a look at it. So what if you were saying, like the title class, like this is cool. I've got these extra things, but you know what? I really want to do something where I want to change this slightly based on a formula, right? So we're going to invent an arbitrary formula here. We're going to format this column, go to advanced, and let's just say let's put a div in there. That sounds exciting. All right, a div, and then we'll say our attributes just to make this look the way we want. We're going to add a class on there. And we're going to say this is the MS font color neutral primary. And then usually I very rarely have things in the primary thing. I usually create children just because it saves you steps later. All right, so if you just kind of have a wrapper div up at the top and then anything you actually want to put in there, you put in the children. That gives you a lot more flexibility and so on. But in this case, we're going to say this will also be a div, and we'll just say our text is our text content. Oops. Text content we're going to say is the current field, right? So that'll take in whatever the title value is. Review that. Okay. So you see, we've just done that. That's interesting, right? We've lost some things. And if we wanted to, like the whole reason we wanted to do this, right, was to have something happen. So let's go to our attributes again. And we're going to throw a class on here. We're going to do an expression for a class, right? So we're going to say if we'll go, it starts with the current field. Again, it's a little arbitrary, but you know, fun. If it starts with a C, let's do an MS font color of green and an MS font weight of bold. All right, we'll make it bold. Otherwise, just leave it alone. All right, but the idea here is now there we go. So we're trying to do something where we're trying to reuse this title field. All right, we're trying to do some kind of expression, but you'll notice we just lost, you know, some of those things we had. Where's our dot menu with the context menu, right? We know we can right click and get a context menu, but it's a hassle, doesn't show things, right? Where's our share button? A couple other things that we had before. So we can actually start to restore some of these things. And what we'll do is let's just add another child. This is why we do the children. The children. All right, we'll say elm type. In this case is going to be a div. All right, and we'll say, let's make it an icon here. We'll say attributes. And we'll go here. We're going to go icon name. And we need an icon. So actually, I've got an icon up. Let's see. I don't remember what that thing's called. Let's see. Dots. There we go. dots, so it's called more vertical. Okay, and I will tell you more about this, but let's come back here. So we're just going to paste that in here, more vertical. All right, and what does it not like? What did I do? Attributes, additional attributes to be added to own type. Well, I don't know what I did wrong. Anybody spotting it? Let's see. I got a name. I don't know. Let's just grab all of this and find out what do you not like. It likes all that, so let's just paste that in. Oh, because I didn't do it as the right spot. There we go. We'll paste it there. All right. Turns out you have to format your stuff correctly. There we go. So now let's preview. Let's format that so we can see it look a little prettier. All right, but now you can see we've got these 3 little dots. I don't know if you can see them. They're real tiny there. See, woo, 3 dots. Okay, so now we've got 3 dots. Well, let's make that just look a little better because that's going to drive me nuts otherwise. So let's add a style here, and we're going to add this as display. We'll make this say flexbox. So I'll say flex, and we'll say justify content, and we'll call this space screen. That should help us. Yeah, it moves that little menu over to the right. So that's exciting. You know, we could come up here and we've got this neutral primary. That's all good. So we come down here and let's change this up a little bit. So let's actually make this useful, right? So we've got a little 3 dots. Now we're just confusing people. Let's make it do something, shall we? So let's add a class just so we can see that a little better. Class, in this case, we're going to say ms-font color theme secondary dash just hover, right? An ms font, we'll say L. Again, I'm pulling all of these classes off of that site. I just happen to know some of them. So now I've made the button bigger, and now you can see it changes color slightly to red when we hover over it. So that's exciting, right? In fact, we want to do something a little further. We're going to say our style. In this case, we're going to say a cursor, and let's put that to a pointer so it, because obviously we should be able to do something with that. There we go. Now we've got a little something. We still can't do anything. So now we're still confusing people, but here's now what we can do. Now we can actually say customRowAction. Yeah, this action. And the action here in this case is going to be open context menu. All right, so let's preview that. And so now, there we go. We've restored the 3 dots menu. And we've got our, our expression here. We could add one more button here to add that share button back. We could even add one for the comments, right? We've even got some samples on how to get comment counts if you wanted to change that. And so instead of add comment, you can actually show the comment count and so on. So you can start to recreate that title field or whatever the field you're looking for and put that in there, or if you wanted to put this, say, a centralized spot with all your other buttons, there's a lot of options there if you're using this open context menu. So woo! All right, that's exciting. There's your on-the-fly demo, and it looks like I've still got time. David, I've got another one I could do if you want.
Take it away. Have at it. You got time.
All right. And again, these are unproofed, so we're going to see what happens. This will be exciting. So this is another new piece here. So we're just going to leave that for fun. We'll move over to our primary weapon category. Let's zoom this a little bit. There we go. And let's go in column settings, and we're going to change it here. So what I'm going to show you now is I'm going to just ignore this primary weapon thing. I just need a column to format on. All right, so we're going to say elm type. In this case, we'll say another div because you know me, I love the divs. All right, and then we'll say our children. As I mentioned, I like to put everything in a child because it comes up. And then we'll say another div in here, and we're just going to say our text content, right, is, I don't know, dog, cat, lizard. I don't know why. All right, so the idea is that we can start to control stuff, but what if we wanted to do something? So say we had values that were separated by something, right? We have the idea of a join. So if you've got a multi-select field, or you can join those together. So if you've got multiple people selected, you can join those with commas, or if you've got choices, you can join those. We have a new expression called split, which is kind of the opposite of that. And that gets pretty exciting. All right, so we could say equals split. This is, again, arbitrary. We're going to split this thing, right? And we're going to split it by comma. And you'll find that I think this will be interesting. Does it work? Now, what did I do? Split the dog count. Again, it's new. Oh, it doesn't really change anything. Okay, so let's try this. Let's do a for each instead, because that'll be more fun. So if you're not familiar with for eaches, for each allow you to do like an iterator, right? So you can see just like that iterator in field name. So normally you would do that with a multi-select field, right? So we would give this, we'll just leave it iterator name. You could name that whatever you want, and then you would apply this. What's interesting is you can use a split. All right, so we can say split, and let's do our same, dog, cat, lizard. Sounds good. And we'll split that by the comma in there. And then what we want to do is our text content. We got text content will equal the iterator name that we used up above, and let's see if that works. Yeah. So now what's happened here is they're all just being concatenated all together, right? But if we were to change this to, have a style, for instance, so let's do style. We'll just do it this way. We'll skip the classes for now. We'll say border. Say 1 pixel solid. Pink sounds pretty. Preview that. You start to see that we've actually taken these and we're really generating a separate div for each one of these. So you start to see this becomes really, really powerful pattern. Then hopefully we'll have a better sample of this soon, that shows this a little more advanced detail. The idea is if you had a column that had, a lot of different types of things, you could split that across and you could then, iterate that on these and create an element for each one of those and then make decisions based on those, right? So we could have made this instead of pink, we could have determined when it was cat, right? So in fact, we probably could still. Let's do that. Let's say equals, and we'll say 1 pixel solid. And instead of pink, we're going to say plus, and we're going to say if the iterator name equals cat. All right, then we're going to say make it pink. Otherwise, we're saying make it lime, because that's lime and pink always look good together, right? So let's preview that. And of course, I broke it. What did we do? Let's try that. There we go. Equals. Gets you every time. But the idea here is I'm not splitting an arbitrary value, but this could be coming from a field or whatever else. And then I'm creating individual elements based on that. And then I can apply conditional formats. I can do all sorts of stuff, right? I could, instead of, these are all being, because by default in these columns, you get, when you have a selection on, you get flex with a column layout. So they go all side by side. So divs behave just slightly different when you have the selection on. But the idea here is I could use that, right, to create a whole list of items, right? I could have these all listed out separately. And I could pull that out. And we've had all sorts of samples that have tried to work around this, right, by using our index ofs and replacement statements. So having a split finally is really awesome. And the fact that split can work with inside of for each really opens up a ton of possibilities, with a lot of power. Again, that's much more of an advanced topic when you start doing the for each. But as you get to that, I think you're going to find that you can actually simplify your formats using this same technique where I'm using a hard-coded kind of sort of pseudo array here. And you could do that the same way, right? If you wanted to create a collection of icons or something, you could split those all up and create those all out here and then create. That way you don't have to write these massive formats that are, 500-600 lines long. You could kind of handle that all together because the for each makes this element into basically a template, which is pretty cool. And you could even wrap in those isSelected and so on and open a context menu just to pull it all together, which is awesome. So we have some additional things coming as well. So there is an additional row action coming to open the approval dialog, which should also help. And then we even have another function, which I'm not going to, I won't demo here because we're just running out of time here, called replace all. So we've had replace, and it's been very irritating because it just replaced the first instance of something. So if you wanted to replace multiple instances of something, you had to just basically nest replace and just hope that you got it enough times to capture that. With the replace all, like you would expect, it's a one-liner, and you can just replace all occurrences of something in a string, which can be really, really helpful as well. And we use that with split. That's awesome. And there's a couple other array type functions like split. So split can work across an array. This is creating an array of these values, but you can use append to and remove from on those as well. So if you're not familiar with those, please check out our documentation, which you can, I imagine David probably dump out a link in the chat already. But it's aka.ms spdev-column-formatting is what that would be. So aka.ms/spdev-column-formatting. And if you haven't checked that out, right, if you go to the advanced or the formatting syntax reference, right, you can find out all about those operators and so on that I've just mentioned down here in the expressions section. Right, so there's a ton of operators you can use. There's those remove from, append to I talked about if you wanted to start working with array type objects, whether you're saving them or not, or whether you're just iterating through them. So anyway, all that to say, this stuff is getting better and better all the time. There's all sorts of new things being added behind the scenes. So stay tuned for more list formatting stuff, and I will kind of wrap up the one part of the plan demo here. And that was this, the isSelected. So if you actually just take that as your text content, you'll get true. It's actually lowercase true and a lowercase false when it gets converted to a string. But it's very easy to use, right? Just by itself. So you can say if isSelected. You don't need to say isSelected equals, true or anything like that. You just say isSelected. But you could use that with the ands or the ors to wrap that up in kind of an elaborate expression. And the main thing is, obviously, when you hide selection, it's a no-go. All right, finally, a couple of resources for you. Right, so apparently you can go spdocs or spdev, so that's fun, for the full documentation. And then, of course, the icon side I showed off there is the flycon.io, where you can get a bunch of icons that can be used in side formatting. We've got another tool here, and this is more for if you're managing repos. And then check out all our samples. And if you go to this link here, you can also get to that quick and easy link to see our groupings and so on, to see samples that are showing you how to use these classes. So the classes I showed you here are listed, and you can sort of get an idea of what they do just based on the name. We've got a slight preview of them, but you can also see any sample that's using them. And that's usually the best way to see, how do these interact, how do they work together, and so on. So that's it for me.
Awesome, Chris. Thanks. And thanks for adding a little extra sugar on top there for the demos today. Some extra stuff. Really appreciate that. Everybody loves to see sneak previews of upcoming and new functionality.